In July 2009, a devastating event shocked the community in Epping, Sydney. A Chinese family of 5 was tragically attacked in their sleep. The details were chilling, and some victims could only be identified through DNA tests. The eldest daughter, however, was away on a study trip at the time, and narrowly avoided the tragedy. After losing her family, she was taken in by her aunt and uncle, which brought her some comfort. But she had no idea that her nightmare was far from over. Step into T.C channel, where every brain-bending mystery unfolds, one clue at a time. Don't just watch, subscribe now and challenge yourself to crack the case. On the morning of July 18, 2009, at 6:35 a.m., a newspaper kiosk worker arrived as usual for his shift. He needed to deliver the day's newspapers. But when he got there, he found the kiosk's front door locked. This was unusual, as the owner usually opened up by this time. Something felt off, so he called his boss, Lin Min, to check if everything was okay. After 3 unsuccessful calls, his concern grew. He then called Lin Min's sister, Lin Jun, asking her to go check on him at his home. Thinking her brother had just overslept, Lin Jun rushed to his house with her husband, Xie Lianbin, to check on him. Around 10 a.m., they arrived at Lin Min's house. As soon as they approached, Lin Jun noticed something was wrong. The door, usually shut tight, was wide open. The house was unnervingly quiet, which immediately raised suspicions. Lin Jun went inside, heading straight to her brother's bedroom. The door was open, but the curtains were pulled back, and the room was dim. At first, it seemed like everything was fine. But as she moved closer, her husband suddenly grabbed her from behind, telling her not to look any further. Despite his warning, Lin Jun caught a glimpse of something unsettling. She saw her sister-in-law, Lin Jun, lying on the bed, in a distressing condition, her face barely recognizable. There were signs of violence in the room. In shock, Lin Jun pulled away from her husband's hold, and ran to check her other sister-in-law, Lin Jun. Sadly, she found Lin Jun had also passed away. She rushed to her nephew's room, only to find them lying near the wardrobe, motionless. Terrified, Lin Jun immediately called the police, her voice shaking as she explained that her brother's family had been attacked, and urgently requested the authorities to come quickly. Xie Lianbin immediately called his father-in-law, Lin Yangfei. At the time, Lin Yangfei was in Maryland, Australia. Even though Maryland wasn't too far from Epping, there was no direct public transport. So, Xie Lianbin offered to drive over and pick them up. Lin Jun stayed behind at the crime scene, waiting for the police to arrive. When Lin Jun heard this, she was puzzled. She was still in shock and worried the killer might return. Also, who would want to be left in such a situation? But Xie Lianbin didn't seem concerned about her safety. After a disagreement, he just walked away. That left Lin Jun alone at the scene. About 20 minutes later, the police arrived. A female officer approached Lin Jun and tried to calm her down, asking for details. Since Lin Jun hadn't seen Lin Min, she told the police the family had been killed, but she hadn't found her brother. That raised some questions for the police, who started to wonder if Lin Min had escaped after the murders. To avoid disturbing the scene, the police briefly checked the victim's pulses, and did a quick scan of the house before leaving. They informed the paramedics that there were 4 bodies inside. Later that afternoon, around 2 p.m., Lin Jun told the police she thought her brother, Lin Min, was probably in his own bed. When she went into the bedroom shared by Lin Min and Lin Jun, she noticed a shape under the blanket that looked like a person. At the time, she wanted to pull back the blanket, but Xie Lianbin stopped her. The police returned to the bedroom for a closer look, and confirmed that Lin Min's body was under the blanket. Then, the coroner began their work on the bodies. The autopsy revealed that all 5 family members died from blunt force trauma to the head. Some of the bodies had severe damage, and identification was challenging. So the coroner identified the victims through available evidence such as personal items and DNA samples. This raised more suspicion for the police, because it seemed like the killer had a personal motive, given the nature of the attack. As the investigation continued, the police found that nothing valuable had been taken from the house, and there were no signs of a break-in. This ruled out robbery as a motive. The evidence also suggested that the killer had cut the power to the house, and then, in the dark, located each family member with precision. This indicated the killer was familiar with the house layout. An even more striking detail was that of all the bedrooms in the house, the only one that wasn't disturbed was Lin Yunli's daughter Lin Jun's room. On the day of the incident, Lin Jun was studying abroad in New Caledonia, so she wasn't home. Interestingly, her room was untouched, which suggested the killer knew she was away. All of these signs pointed to one conclusion: this could very well have been a case involving someone familiar with the family. As the investigation progressed, the list of suspects started to shrink. Soon, all eyes were on one person, Lin Shu's husband, Xie Lianbin. On August 8, 2009, the Lin family held the funeral at Olympic Park. Lin Jun had returned home from New Caledonia just in time. At the funeral, Lin Jun stayed quiet, leaning on her grandmother, saying her final goodbyes. She fought back tears several times during the service. Hearing her grandmother sobbing, Lin Jun couldn't hold it together and broke down. Lin Jun's teacher, Ms. Bleach, was also there. Since the tragedy, she had been watching out for Lin Jun's well-being. At the funeral, she kept a close eye on her. That's when she noticed something odd. In a quiet corner, Xie Lianbin was speaking with Lin Jun in their native language. Lin Jun kept her head down, tears running down her face. Ms. Bleach couldn't understand them, but the way Xie Lianbin was speaking made her uneasy. She decided to tell the police about it right away. At that point, the police had already honed in on Xie Lianbin as their prime suspect. His actions on the day Lin Shu reported the crime were strange. For example, when Lin Shu tried to enter the house, Xie Lianbin stopped her from going in. Could he have been hiding something inside? At the time, Lin Shu was worried the killer might come back. She asked Xie Lianbin to stay, but he insisted on leaving. Why did he leave so quickly? Did he know the danger had passed? Also, both Lin Shu and the first responding officers believed there were only 4 victims. But around 2 p.m., Lin Shu suddenly told the police that she thought Lin Min might still be inside. Was this a guess? Or did someone give her this information? Then, when Xie Lianbin brought his father-in-law, Lin Yangfei, to the house, he immediately suggested adopting Lin Jun. His quick offer struck some as strange, raising even more suspicion. Beyond his actions, Xie Lianbin's physical characteristics seemed to match those of the suspect. He was in great shape, being an active badminton player, and he had a key to the Lin family's home, giving him easy access. Moreover, Xie Lianbin knew Lin Jun was away studying. The shoe prints found at the scene were between sizes 8.5 and 10.5, which just so happened to match Xie Lianbin's shoe size of 9.5. Apart from the details already mentioned, the investigation quickly began to uncover Xie Lianbin's possible motives. Before moving to Australia, he had worked as an ENT doctor in his hometown. But once he arrived, he struggled to find stable work. After several failed attempts, he decided to open a specialty restaurant with financial backing from the Lin couple. However, the market for such businesses was already saturated, and his restaurant closed in 2005. Since then, Xie Lianbin had no steady job, and mainly relied on stock trading to get by. In contrast, the newspaper kiosk run by Lin Min earned about 1 million Australian dollars a year, which was a significant income. This surely caught Xie Lianbin's attention. The police suspected that he might have been willing to do anything to get his hands on that money. After the incident, Xie Lianbin and Lin Shu quickly took control of the kiosk business, which only strengthened the police's suspicions. By this point, most of the evidence seemed to point toward one conclusion: Xie Lianbin was the main suspect. The police theorized that, on the night of the incident, he might have first sedated Lin Shu, then, once she was asleep, gone to Lin Min's house. After cutting the power, he may have used a tool to strike the heads of the 5 family members, leading to their deaths. Once he disposed of the weapon, he returned home and went to sleep. Although the police suspected him, they didn't have enough hard evidence to make an arrest, so they kept their suspicions private. However, a key piece of evidence soon caught their attention: the custody of 15-year-old Lin Jun. At that time, Lin Jun was still a child, having lost both of her parents. Xie Lianbin was eager to adopt her, which raised some concerns with the authorities. Given that Lin Min's elderly relatives were not in a position to care for her, the police carried out a thorough risk assessment and decided to place Lin Jun in Xie Lianbin's care temporarily. They believed that if Xie Lianbin had harmful intentions, he could have taken advantage of the time while Lin Jun was abroad, so they assumed there was no immediate danger. However, to protect Lin Jun and continue their investigation, the Australian police decided to take extra precautions. At the end of 2009, they began tapping Xie Lianbin's phone, and on January 19, 2010, they secretly entered his home and installed surveillance equipment to gather more clues. With this close monitoring, the police started to uncover valuable evidence. After the tragic events, Lin Jun, who had lost her entire family, became emotionally fragile and didn't want to let go of the only remaining family member. This led her to agree to Xie Lianbin's demands for some time. But Lin Jun was also a crucial witness in the case, and her testimony could make all the difference. Yet, under surveillance, she changed her story and reversed her earlier statements. In July 2009, during her first statement, Lin Jun admitted she wasn't sure if her husband, Xie Lianbin, had left after she fell asleep. She also mentioned that, on the day she reported the incident, before seeing the scene, Xie Lianbin had hugged her to stop her from looking. But months later, Lin Jun changed her story. Now she claimed that on the night of the incident, Xie Lianbin definitely hadn't left the house. She explained that she had a light sleep, and even the smallest sounds would wake her up. If he had left, she would have noticed. The police suggested he might have drugged her, but she firmly denied it. As for the scene, Lin Jun also changed her account. She now said she had found the scene first, and then Xie Lianbin hugged her. So why the sudden change in her story? The police had been reviewing surveillance footage from her house, and found that, over the past few months, Xie Lianbin had told her, "The police are starting to suspect me. You have to stand by me. I'm the only one who will always be by your side." This led the police to believe Xie Lianbin was trying to manipulate Lin Jun, covering up the truth. To test Xie Lianbin further, the police purposely told Lin Jun that, while checking footprints on the first floor, they found all the prints came from a particular brand of sneakers, a brand Xie Lianbin was known to wear. The print size also matched his. The police then closely observed his reaction, and sure enough, that night, he began searching for a shoebox, soaked it, tore it up, and flushed it down the toilet. On May 11, 2010, after gathering more clues, the police quietly sealed off Xie Lianbin's home and began a 4-day search. On May 13th, they discovered a key piece of evidence in the garage. The evidence, called Stain 91, was oval-shaped, about 2 centimeters long, and about 6 millimeters wide at its widest. At first, the police thought it was just a normal stain, but after further investigation, the prosecutor believed it could be a mark left by Xie Lianbin while moving evidence. Tests later confirmed the stain contained DNA from 4 of the victims, as well as DNA from an unknown woman. May 2011, over a year after the tragedy, Xie Lianbin was finally arrested by the police. At that point, his wife, Lin Jun, started working tirelessly to prove his innocence. Meanwhile, Lin Yangfei, his elderly father-in-law, who was in his 80s, and his wife, were also pushing for justice for their family, hoping Xie Lianbin would be brought to trial soon. The Lin family's situation drew a lot of attention, shocking the public. No one could have imagined that, in the aftermath of the tragedy, the surviving members of the Lin family would end up divided into 2 opposing sides. In court, Xie Lianbin stood firm, responding to every question from the prosecution with, "I didn't do this, I don't know." Lin Jun, on the other hand, testified on his behalf, swearing that on the day of the incident, Xie Lianbin was at home, never leaving. Then, new evidence came into play. Experts found an unknown DNA sample on Stain 91, which they believed came from a female member of the Lin family, possibly Lin Jun or Lin Jun. This discovery weakened the stain's significance as crucial evidence. Xie Lianbin's lawyer argued that it could have been a stain left unintentionally before the incident, which caused the case to hit another impasse. As the case seemed ready to take a new direction, the police made a move. They contacted Xie Lianbin's former cellmate, who will call Witness A. The police offered Witness A a reduced sentence and $4,000, hoping he could get close to Xie Lianbin and gather information. Witness A agreed to help. Through his interactions with Xie Lianbin, Witness A started building a reputation for himself, boasting about his connections with corrupt officers. He told Xie Lianbin that if they became friends, he could offer him a lot of help. Over time, Xie Lianbin came to trust Witness A and started opening up about his frustrations with the Lin family. Xie Lianbin believed he was smart and successful, while he saw the Lin family as beneath him. He also felt his father-in-law didn't respect him enough. He mentioned that he had given Lin Jun something to help her relax, and admitted that after the incident, he went to pick up Lin Yangfei and his wife, but his real intention was to dispose of the weapon along the way. Despite all the new information, The judge ruled that there still wasn't enough evidence to convict Xie Lianbin. The judge questioned if Xie Lianbin's motive was simply resentment toward his father-in-law and the Lin family. Why were all the family members harmed, but the father-in-law was spared? After 4 years of back-and-forth trials, Xie Lianbin was finally granted parole on December 8, 2015. On that day, he and Lin Jun were interviewed, looking cheerful and relieved. Xie Lianbin said he was thrilled to be home for Christmas. Even though he had been granted parole, the mood at the police station was anything but festive. Just when the investigation seemed stuck, a crucial figure reverses came forward, changing everything. This figure reverses was Lin Jun, Xie Lianbin's adopted daughter. In 2014, Lin Jun reached out to a lawyer with a letter. She revealed that from 2008 to 2011, she had experienced inappropriate behavior from her adoptive father, Xie Lianbin. At the same time, her aunt, Lin Jun, had no idea. The police had already recorded some footage from a hidden camera, showing Lin Jun quietly working on her homework. Out of nowhere, Xie Lianbin walked up and placed his hand on her shoulder. But the police didn't look into this at the time. What they didn't realize was that, in areas outside the camera's view, Lin Jun was going through much worse. You might wonder, why didn't Lin Jun fight back? After losing both her parents, she was left with no one to rely on. She trusted Lin Jun and Xie Lianbin. At the time, Lin Jun was just a child, and she didn't fully grasp how serious things were, so she never told anyone what was happening. In the first few years after the incident, Lin Jun even stood by Xie Lianbin with Lin Jun, denying what the media was reporting. But as she got older, Lin Jun started to understand the gravity of what she had been through. That's when she decided to speak out and tell her lawyer, and eventually, the prosecutor was informed, starting to push the case forward. Even with the testimony, though, they still needed hard evidence. So, once again, the prosecutor put their hopes in the stain number 91. This time, they sent it to labs in the US and New Zealand for testing. The results came back fast from the US lab. It showed the stain contained DNA from 4 people: Lin Min, Lin Han, Lin Tao, and Xie Lianbin. After years of court proceedings, it was almost time for the case to reach its conclusion. On January 12, 2017, during the trial, 11 out of 12 jurors found Xie Lianbin guilty. 1 juror disagreed. Judge Blurton recommended the court follow the 11-1 verdict. As a result, Xie Lianbin was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms, with no chance of parole. Even after hearing the sentence, Xie Lianbin stayed calm. His face remained neutral, and he even waved at his lawyer. In the courtroom, he occasionally smiled and nodded at his wife. But no matter how composed he tried to look, Xie Lianbin couldn't escape his fate of life in prison. When the verdict was announced, the elderly Lin Yangfei couple stood outside the courthouse, finally shedding tears of relief. After all these years, they had finally seen justice. 8 years have passed, and the elderly couple, using their canes, have tirelessly fought to find justice. They've faced legal battles with their daughter and son-in-law, which has caused immense strain on their family in their later years. During this time, Lin Jun also endured a lot of personal suffering. However, today, they've begun to find their way out of the shadows, supporting each other, and healing the emotional wounds they've carried. They understand that, since the past cannot be changed, the best they can do now is cherish the present, and share the love they have left with their remaining family. This time, Lin Jun courageously expressed her feelings. In the card she wrote to her grandparents, she said, "Grandpa, Grandma, I will always love you, and I hope we can create even more beautiful memories together." Looking back at the whole case, it serves as a profound reminder for us all. The actions of Xie Lianbin were truly shocking, and Lin Jun's unquestioning support for her husband posed many challenges to the investigation. When Xie Lianbin belittled Lin Min, accusing him of only knowing how to work hard, did he ever consider that others also earn their wealth through hard work? When he angrily accused his father-in-law of favoritism and looked down on him, did he realize that respect is earned through effort and integrity, not through laziness or deceitful schemes? Clearly, Xie Lianbin never truly thought these things through, and that led to his extreme actions. So, what do you think about this case? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.